let's create something that we can actually use within Visual Studio. I am running right here the Visual Studio Express for Windows. It's the 2013 Express Edition. You might be wondering why I'm running the Express Edition, and it's because I have the 1.3 SDK listed on the Windows version, and I have the 2 version listed on the web version. So I have Visual Studio Express 2013 for web, which is I'm going to demonstrate Azure with. This I'm going to demonstrate Visual Studio Online with. Rest assured, you can have the SDK in either or both. You can have the SDKs in the Visual Studio 2013 Community Edition if you wish. So you can run these SDKs in and out. I just didn't want to have to uninstall SDKs and reinstall SDKs. That's the only difference. I'm running Windows with VSO and web with Azure. So just keep all of that in mind. The other thing too is that Application Insights will run with the Community Edition, and for Visual Studio 2015, it's going to be baked in, so you won't have to install any SDKs. So as soon as you go to 2015, it's going to live in there. It's all going to be native. So just keep some of this in mind as you're going through and thinking about how you want to develop some of this stuff. All right. To install, I'm not going to install it because I already have it installed, but I'm going to show you how you would install it. To get the Visual Studio, the Application Insights SDK onto your machine, you'll go to Tools, Extensions and Updates. The extensions and updates are all here, and you can see right here that I have the Visual Studio 1.32 version, which is telling me that I'm using the Visual Studio Online SDK version of Application Insights. So I'm running the 1.3 version, and I'm going to run Application Insights within Visual Studio Express for Windows. If this said 2.0, it means I'd be targeting Azure. So all this is telling me is that whenever I'm going to save out any metrics, I'm going to push it to Visual Studio Online. If this said version 2.x, I'd be pushing all my metrics out to Azure. Is there a question? Sorry, I saw a hand. All good? All right. I'm going to create a new project. Before I do that, I just want to show you a few things. I'm going to create a Windows app. You can see that I'm going to just create a Windows app, a blank Windows app. The thing I want to point you to, though, is I have all of this information here. So you can see right here that I have the Add Application Insights to the Project checkbox. It's unchecked right now, so which means the SDK would not be added. The only way you get this is if you add that extensions, tools and extensions into this. Once the SDK is valid and installed, you will start seeing this checkbox on your supported projects. You can also see too that I am signed in to both visualstudio.com, and this is the same sign-in I'm going to use for Azure. So very different things, or very same things. You just want to make sure that they both are there. So I'm going to say yes, I want to add myself to Application Insights. Don't worry if you see this. This technical note will pop up because I'm targeting any CPU. You cannot target any CPU. You cannot target the x64. You must have the x80. Or sorry, you can't target the x86. You must target the ARM or the x64. The reason being is that Windows is using WinMD or native components, and the Windows runtime components will not run with this. So it's an easy fix. I'll show you what you have to do. So just be aware that if your application isn't running, it's probably because you haven't changed your configuration settings. So for this, just to bypass this for the moment, I can say, okay. I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a easy name here. I'm just going to call it cttdnug_VSO. That's going to be my project. And you can see over here that I've added Application Insights to the project. You can also see here too, by clicking the configuration settings, so I just click this, you can see here, I'm just going to get out of that, you can see that this dialog box pops up. What this gives me is actually, it's going to give me different resources, application insight resources within Visual Studio. So think of it like this, and both Azure and Visual Studio run the exact same way. When you're saving your metrics out of your app and into a resource, or into Visual Studio Online or into Azure, you're always saving into a resource. So that resource is just a way of grouping that information. Just think of it that way. So you can have it make a resource for you, which is what bracket project name is going to do. So it's going to create the ctd_VSO resource for me. Or if I created the resource previously, or I wanted to have two separate applications pointing to the same resource, I can just select that resource here. So just think about how you want to group some of your information, and this way is just an easy way to do that. It'll become a little clearer as I go along here. So I'm just going to allow it to create its own resource. I'm going to allow it to create the project name as the resource, and I'm going to hit OK. And you can see here that it's installing. It's installing the application insights into the project. And on the right-hand side, it's pretty quick, but if you saw that, you can see that this has been added. This application insights config has been added to the project. If I click the config, you can see all of a sudden I have 4 different links. And these are links. These aren't files. These are actually links out to VSO, and I'll show you what those mean in a second. But these are actually links to my resource on Visual Studio Online that will actually take me there and I can start seeing some of my metrics. So I have that. Just so I can do some cleanup here so I can show you what else has been added. You can see here that it has added the SDK as part of NuGet automatically for me just by clicking that checkbox. So I do have the Insights Telemetry SDK for Windows Store apps already in the NuGet package, and the version is there. I don't know what current version they are. I haven't really been tracking that, but this is the version that they're using right now for Windows Store apps and for Visual Studio Online. You'll see when I show you the NuGet package for the other one that it'll be slightly different, and there'll be many more SDK files. So if I go to run this, just keeping in mind that it's just a plain project. There's nothing there. Build failed. Why did build fail? Doesn't support any. Oh, see, I didn't follow my own advice. Build configuration manager. Again, this is where you would come and change it to x64. Now, if I build it now, ta-da. Now I will push it out to the machine. So you can see it's just a blank app, there's nothing there. But even just by me clicking around, I'm going to start seeing some information appear within Visual Studio. You might not believe it, but there will actually be some information over there. So how do I get over there? You can either go back to Visual Studio Online and if I click into Try Application Insights, you can see here all of a sudden I have the ctd_VSO resource listed there. You can see it's right there. If I didn't have this already open and I wanted to make my life simpler, I could just double click this, ctd_VSO dashboard. And again, it's going to take me right there. And it's going to have that. It's going to have that right there for me. So you can get there either way. It's all going to live within the cloud, so just think of it that way. You can leave that window open or not. It all depends on how you want to do it. I'm going to live in the IE world just because I find it works a little better with some of the Microsoft products. So clicking on this resource, you can see here that I have an event. So it's telling me that the Windows Store application has sent some telemetry data from my application to Visual Studio to 2 minutes ago, just by me opening it and clicking it. There hasn't been much. I can show you what it looks like. It's going to take me to the diagnostic streaming page here. So it's going to, all it did was it jumped from the overview tab to the diagnostics streaming data tabs. That's all it does. Clicking it doesn't really give you a lot of information. There's not a lot there. Can't really learn much from it. But it's kind of nice to know that we're pushing some data out at least. And again, that was all just by me clicking that one checkbox. I haven't done anything. You just saw, I just clicked the checkbox, created the project, ran it, clicked around, and bam, I'm already getting application data. So, you might want to know, you might think, how is all of this working? The secret to this whole thing is this, Application Insights Config.